What if nearly everything modern society tells us about happiness is wrong? What if the endless chase for more money, more status, more stuff, is actually pushing us further from happiness instead of closer to it? And what if a forgotten philosopher from 2,000 years ago had a radically different idea of happiness, one that might just be more relevant today than ever before? Epicurus, often misunderstood as someone who promoted indulgence and excess, actually laid out one of the most practical guides to happiness ever developed. His approach wasn't about luxury or escape. It was about understanding what truly satisfies us as human beings. By revisiting his ideas, we might discover that happiness isn't something we need to chase. It's something we need to rethink. Epicurus was born in 341 BCE on the Greek island of Samos during a period of major political change. The age of the independent Greek city-states was ending, and Alexander the Great's empire was spreading across the known world. Traditional values and beliefs were being questioned, creating uncertainty much like our own times of rapid technological and social change. Like many revolutionary thinkers, Epicurus's background positioned him as both insider and outsider to the intellectual traditions of his time. His father was a schoolteacher who had settled in an Athenian colony, giving young Epicurus access to education while remaining somewhat removed from the established Athenian elite. After completing his mandatory military service in Athens at 18, Epicurus was exposed to the political maneuvering, status competition, and warfare that characterized his era. What he observed profoundly shaped his thinking about happiness. While most of his contemporaries chased wealth, political power, and public recognition, Epicurus saw that those who achieved these supposed markers of success often remained deeply unsatisfied. The connection between external achievement and internal contentment seemed weak at best. After studying various philosophical traditions, including the atomism of Democritus, Epicurus eventually broke away to develop his own comprehensive approach to the good life. In 306 BCE, he established a philosophical community in Athens known simply as the Garden, a name that would become synonymous with his approach to happiness. Unlike other philosophical schools that excluded women and slaves, the Garden welcomed everyone, making it radical not just in its ideas, but in its social structure. The core of Epicurus's philosophy of happiness rests on a fundamental redefinition of pleasure. When we say that pleasure is the goal, he wrote, we do not mean the pleasures of the profligate or the pleasures of consumption, but rather the absence of pain in the body and disturbance in the soul. This distinction is crucial. While most people chase intense, momentary pleasures that quickly fade, Epicurus identified true happiness as ataraxia, a lasting state of tranquility free from both physical pain and mental anxiety. Epicurus's genius was seeing that most unhappiness comes not from too little pleasure, but from chasing the wrong desires. He divided desires into three simple types: what we truly need, what's nice but unnecessary, and what never satisfies us no matter how much we get. This framework offers a practical way to make choices that lead to real happiness instead of temporary thrills, followed by renewed cravings. Natural and necessary desires are basic needs: simple food, shelter, safety, and friendship. These are both easy to satisfy and truly fulfilling when met. The wealth required by nature is limited and easy to get, Epicurus pointed out. We actually need much less than we think. Natural but unnecessary desires are our preferences for specific luxuries: fancy restaurant meals instead of simple food, designer clothes instead of basic covering, big houses instead of modest homes. Nothing's wrong with enjoying these when available, but building your happiness around them creates problems. They are harder to get and easier to lose. Most troublesome are the vain and empty desires, cravings for unlimited wealth, fame, power, or status. These can never truly be satisfied because they have no natural endpoint. Nothing is enough for the man who thinks enough is too little, Epicurus wrote. This is the trap that keeps people perpetually unhappy despite growing wealth. This analysis of desire speaks directly to our modern lives. Look at how today's marketing constantly creates new needs and fuels endless comparison. A person buys a home and immediately feels pressure to renovate it. Someone gets a promotion and quickly adjusts to the new salary. already eyeing the next level up. Social media platforms profit from our tendency to compare ourselves to others, keeping us feeling perpetually inadequate. The opening words of Epicurus's masterwork invite us to rethink everything. Don't fear the gods. Don't worry about death. What's good is easy to get. What's terrible is easy to endure. These 4 simple statements, known as the 4-part cure, were designed to eliminate the major sources of anxiety that prevent happiness. The first 2 points tackle the big fears that often ruin happiness. Epicurus wasn't saying gods don't exist. He thought they did exist, but simply didn't care about human affairs. They didn't punish, reward, or micromanage our lives. This view was meant to free people from the constant worry about divine judgment that dominated ancient religious life. As for death, Epicurus offered a brilliantly simple argument. Death is nothing to us. When we exist, death is not present. When death is present, we no longer exist. We never actually experience our own non-existence, so fearing it makes no sense. This wasn't meant to dismiss grief when others die, but to free us from the paralyzing fear about our own mortality. The third point, that good things are easy to get, refers back to his categories of desire. If we focus on what we truly need, these things are pretty simple to satisfy. Clean water, basic food, simple shelter, and good friends don't require wealth or status. Most people can access these regardless of their position in society. The fourth point, that bad things are easy to endure, shows Epicurus's insight about pain. Most suffering, he noticed, follows a pattern. It's either intense but brief, or long-lasting but mild. Intense pain doesn't last. It either lessens or it kills us, while mild pain can be managed, especially when balanced with mental pleasures like good conversation or happy memories. Perhaps most revolutionary was Epicurus's emphasis on friendship as central to the happy life. Unlike later philosophical traditions that might emphasize solitary contemplation, Epicurus placed social connection at the heart of well-being. Of all the things which wisdom provides to make life entirely happy, he wrote, the greatest is the possession of friendship. Epicurus and his followers lived this philosophy daily. The garden functioned as a community where friendship flourished through practice. Members lived simply, shared meals, and engaged in philosophical conversation. They supported each other materially and emotionally, creating a buffer against the insecurities of ancient life. This approach recognized that humans are inherently social creatures, and that the security of knowing others care for us creates a foundation for happiness that no material possession can provide. Epicurus and his community practiced what they preached. Their meals were simple but satisfying, typically bread, vegetables, cheese, and water, with a little wine on occasion. "Send me a pot of cheese," Epicurus once wrote to a friend, "so that I may have a feast when I wish." This captures his approach, not denying enjoyment, but finding satisfaction in simple things that are easy to get. This lifestyle was complemented by regular philosophical discussion, which Epicurus saw as essential to maintaining mental tranquility. By examining and challenging harmful beliefs and anxieties together, community members helped each other maintain perspective. This practice mirrors modern therapeutic approaches that emphasize the examination of distorted thinking patterns. What makes Epicurus's approach to happiness so valuable today is that it addresses the psychological dynamics that keep us dissatisfied despite unprecedented material abundance. Consider how many of our desires are what Epicurus would classify as vain and empty. The pursuit of social media validation, the accumulation of status symbols, or the constant upgrading of possessions. These pursuits don't just fail to satisfy, they actively create new forms of anxiety. Take smartphone use as an example. What started as a simple communication tool has become a source of endless notifications, comparisons, and distractions that fragment our attention and increase stress. Epicurus would see this as a perfect example of how chasing certain pleasures can destroy our ability to experience deeper satisfaction. Or consider our relationship with work and success. Many people spend the majority of their waking hours pursuing career advancement, only to find that achieving their goals doesn't deliver the fulfillment they expected. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, Epicurus observed, but in having few wants. This insight challenges the fundamental equation between accumulation and happiness that drives much of our economic system. Even our leisure has become a form of labor, as social media transforms our private moments into opportunities for public display and validation. The pressure to curate perfect-looking lives online creates exactly the kind of status anxiety that Epicurus's philosophy was designed to eliminate. His garden community, by contrast, offered a space free from performance and comparison, a place where people could simply be present with each other. The garden itself can be seen as a kind of quiet rebellion. By creating a space where individuals from different backgrounds live together based on friendship rather than hierarchy, Epicurus wasn't just thinking about happiness, he was creating it in practice. Critics of Epicurus, both ancient and modern, often misunderstood his ideas as passive withdrawal or selfish pleasure-seeking. The Stoics, his philosophical rivals, argued that virtue, not pleasure, should be the highest goal. They criticized his political disengagement, claiming that humans have duties to the broader community. There's merit to these critiques. Epicurus did advocate stepping back from politics, advising his followers to live hidden, Latha biosas. But this wasn't simply avoiding responsibility. The political climate of his time was dangerous and corrupt. His retreat might be better understood as a strategic move, not abandoning responsibility, but creating a space where better values could take root. Epicurus died in 270 BCE from complications of kidney stones, enduring his painful end with philosophical composure. According to the historian Diogenes Laertius, his last letter included the lines, "I have written this letter to you on a happy day to me, which is also the last day of my life. But the cheerfulness of my mind, which comes from the recollection of all my philosophical contemplation, counterbalances all these afflictions." This final statement embodies his approach, that even in physical suffering, mental tranquility can be maintained through philosophy and the recollection of pleasant experiences. It's not that Epicurus denied suffering or pretended it didn't exist, but rather that he developed techniques to prevent suffering from consuming one's entire consciousness. While the garden itself didn't survive long after his death, Epicurus's ideas have endured for over 2 millennia, finding expression in thinkers as diverse as the Roman poet Lucretius, Renaissance essayist Michel de Montaigne, founding father Thomas Jefferson, and philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Today, aspects of his philosophy echo in the simple living movement, mindfulness practices, and positive psychology. Do not spoil what you have by desiring what you have not, Epicurus advised. Remember that what you now have was once among the things you only hoped for. In these words lies a path to contentment that remains as relevant now as it was in ancient Athens. Not because it offers a perfect system, no philosophy does, but because it asks us to consider a radical possibility, that happiness might be much closer than we think, if only we can learn to want less and appreciate more. The greatest achievement of Epicurus wasn't creating a comprehensive philosophical system, but offering practical wisdom that addresses the common human search for happiness. By showing that many of our desires create more suffering in their pursuit than satisfaction in their fulfillment, he provided a framework for living that remains profoundly countercultural. In a world that profits from our discontent, choosing to be satisfied might be the most radical act of all.